Hello there, and welcome to the Paranormal Puffin, a potent puffin sideshow. And I'm your host, Jake Thomas. And here in the studio with me tonight is Kita, the Elk Hound. And on this month of Paranormal Puffin, I'll be discussing paranormal orbs. Now, my decision to talk about orbs this month was kind of debated in my mind. It was my initial idea to talk about orbs this month. However, on a side project that I am also working on, doing some research for, I thought about going a different direction, but just doing a little further research both towards orbs and into this side project, I decided that for right now, going with the orbs would be a better topic for now. And I'm going to save that research for my side project, and it will probably manifest itself on the podcast sometime in the future when that content fits in a little bit better in my mind. And so this month, like I said, I'll be discussing orbs. Now, the most common thing with orbs is for them to show up in photographs. There's been a lot of increase in orbs appearing in photographs since right around the 1990s. There started being an increase. I think a lot of that's due to digital cameras becoming more popular and accessible around that time, and so more people were taking photos in general, and so more people were experiencing this phenomenon with the orbs. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, basically a lot of times someone will take a picture and then they'll go back to look at the picture and notice that there are little spherical floating objects in the picture that weren't there when they initially took the picture. Now, there's a lot of different explanations behind this phenomenon, from being spirits or other paranormal entities to just being malfunctions or tricks of the camera, or to just it being, just dust or rain or something microscopic that you couldn't see but was within the scope of the lens. So I'm just going to look at some of these different things and try and figure out what these orbs are, and are they paranormal or are they not? Personally, I think you have to look at each photo individually and look at other context clues to really know. And so first I'm just going to go over some of the, camera, explanations involving the camera itself. So basically, how a camera works is it uses light to create a reflection of the image, and it creates an inverted image based on that reflection, and that's what gives you your picture. And so anything, that light could reflect off of will end up in the picture, even if you don't see it. So like little specks of dust, eyelashes that were sitting along the lens, those could, cause some kind of interference in the final picture. And that's one of the easiest ways to write off an orb is, there's, some dust, or there's a bug, or there's a reflection off of, some water. If it was raining, that will definitely cause orbs to show up in your picture, because light loves to reflect through water. And, with rain, a lot of people will see the raindrops and think, oh, that has to be an orb because it looks like it's traveling. Because you see the light going, you see like the spherical base of it, and then there's like a tail to it almost. But that's would be expected with rain, because rain is falling from the sky, and so the most dense part of the raindrop is towards the bottom because the gravity's pulling it down. But light, like electricity, likes to take the path of least resistance, which means the light's gonna exit and reflect off of the top of the raindrop where it's less dense. And so that's kind of what creates that tail on the orb and gives it that appearance of traveling. And so that is how water kind of plays into it. especially rain. And, orbs, they come in all different types of colors. That's why some people, get into it, think, oh, it's a reflection or something, it might be, white or not clear, so, but when you start seeing other colors, that can, you think, oh, it's not a flash because it's not the color of what you think of a flash. So, but that can be explained through, different fabrics that are in the area of the picture, because the colors of those fabrics, depending on what they are, could cause reflection and reflect off to give that color to the orb. But when you start looking at the paranormal aspect of it, those colors can be of importance because it can kind of tell you what the meaning behind the orb is and give you, it could be little extra clues to what's going on spiritually in that area. And so going into that is another explanation of orbs, is that they could be spirits of some kind. A lot of times when talking about the spirits and ghosts, they have to have so much energy to be able to manifest themselves. And so some believe that it could be a spirit with a lower energy level, and that's all that they're able to manifest themselves as these little orbs and pictures, but they're not able to fully manifest themselves to us because they don't have enough energy. And so going back to the colors, like I said, the colors can give us an idea of what's going on with the area. If you're taking these pictures as part of like an investigation, or they come as a surprise, but you had suspicions that there could be something paranormal or spiritual in the area. The color of these orbs could give you some clue as to what these spirits are trying to communicate with you. And so I'm just going to go over the colors real fast. And if you've studied, the chakra, some of this might sound familiar, some of it will be different from that as well, just because of different theories on the colors. But a lot of it kind of aligns with that as well. So you see your red and orange orbs, they're one of those that have different potential meanings. It could be that it's trying to communicate with you that, there's something that's safe or secure about the area, or that it's a spirit that's there to provide safety and security for you. It could have been, someone who you knew or maybe don't know, but they're there to protect you. They're a protector, a caretaker of some sort, which kind of going into the other theory on red and orange can be a little scary, because it could also potentially be that it's a negative energy that's angry. So you really got to be careful, because those are two very opposite ends of the spectrum. It could be something there to provide protection, but it could be something that's angry and showing itself as red, because we associate red with anger, and so it's wanting you to leave, it wants you to know that it's not happy with you there. So you got to be really careful with red and orange, in my opinion, because it could go really either way. Green orbs, it could be something there that's, wanting to be loving and compassionate, or it could be something associated with nature. So it could have been, maybe like the spirit of like an animal, or, the trees, could be something from nature that's gone on and is still lingering around in the area. And then you get into, your blues. And blue is usually going to be something there that's to calm you. It wants you to be calm. It wants you to know that, everything's mellow here. And it could also be something there to provide you with guidance. And, could be there, hey, it wants to be clear and provide good communication. So I think maybe if you have like a blue orb and like really good EVPs in the area, that would make a lot of sense, because it wants to have clear communication with you. And so if you see blue orbs, maybe go back with an EVP to the area and see if you can get something that way. And then you have extra evidence for a haunting in the area. So it could be like, hey, we're here, why aren't you trying to communicate? we want to communicate. So it could be that's what they're doing by being blue. It could be just trying to, let off a calming sense of calmness for the area, but it could also be like, hey, we're here. We want to communicate with you if you want to. So I think it'd be, interesting to go back to areas that are common with blue orbs and, try some EVPs and other techniques, see what other evidence you can gather. Which that's always a good thing with orbs, is if you're wanting to prove that it's a paranormal orb and not a camera trick or malfunction, if you have other evidence to go along with it, that will help. And then silver orbs are typically entities that are trapped in that place, like they can't leave where they are. So they're going to be strongly associated with that. So that's likely, in my opinion, to be, someone who lived there before and doesn't want to leave their possession behind. Then you get into black orbs. Black typically indicates that the area is unsafe. Something negative probably happened there in the past. So with black orbs, if you're getting a lot of those, it's probably a good idea not to return to the area or to leave the area. That's the spirit's warning you, hey, this is not a good place for you to be, get out. Or it's just simply that the spirit that's there doesn't want you there. So it's best to respect that and to leave. Gray or smoky looking orbs could be a sign of depression of the spirit that's there. Or it could be, the spirit, recognizing, if you're having trouble with depression, they may recognize that and they may manifest that way. And, just could be their way, hey, you're dealing with this. We want to make sure you're dealing with this as well. And so you're, getting a lot of gray orbs in your photographs, might be a way to look. And if you are experiencing that, might just be the spirit realm trying to get your attention, like, hey, go get help for this. And I would strongly recommend you do so if you're struggling with that. And then pink orbs are often messengers of love. So they could be, maybe something very lovingly happened in this area, or, they're just messengers of love. And so that's kind of a basic rundown of the different colors of orbs, which there's, multiple more colors with more meanings behind them, and you can definitely go deeper into these colors. But that's just a basic rundown of some of the more common colors. Now, when looking to debunk orbs in photographs, another thing that is good to look at is the location of the orb, because that will tell you more solidly if it is an orb or if it's something else. So, in photographs, reflections won't fall directly behind a person or an object. So if it's like behind something and appears to be following someone, like it's directly behind them, then it's probably an orb, because there shouldn't be a reflection there. So then also, if it's really dense, then it's more likely to be an orb. If you got something that's pretty transparent, it more than likely isn't a true orb. It likely is just a bug or some kind of reflection or a dust particle. So those are two good things to look at to try and tell if you have an actual orb or something else. And so now I'm going to kind of look at orbs outside of photographs. There's lots of different theories and different ways they've manifested themselves over the years. So being outside of photographs is kind of weird. I haven't found just a whole lot on it in my brief research, but what I've gathered is, you have a lot of folklore regarding like ghost lights. Lights that appear in a distance but never get closer, or never get farther away, never get closer. They're just kind of out there. And there's so many different legends that go out there, from miners carrying a light to, headless specters, carrying out things like that. But then there's also other things that kind of lend into some of the picture theories as well, such as, so we go back to the green orbs being something of nature. So one thing that physical orbs outside of pictures could be is a lot of folklore think that it could be, the elves or fairy folk or, things like that, or, sprites that are in their travel form. They go into like these little balls of light to travel. And that would make sense being of nature, because when you think of, your elves, especially, you got, woodland elves, and, you got all these different types of elves, usually associated with a different aspect of nature. So that could make sense for a green orb to, actually be a photograph potentially of an elf in travel form. Another thing is, the will-o-wisp, you know, ghost lights, as they're called by some. These could be often explained as, swamp gases, which is basically methane and phosphine mixed together, and when those mix and then together, and then you add in oxygen, that can cause an internal explosion, which gives off, the light that you see. And so that could be a possibility, especially if you're in a boggy or swampy area, or near a sewer where there's, that wet area filled with decaying substance. That could cause that phenomenon. And that makes a lot of sense when you think that the sightings of that phenomenon has gone down over the years, as a lot of swamplands have been drained for developmental purposes. And so, without as much swamplands around, it makes sense that there's been a decline in reports of that type of phenomenon. But it's still a possibility, and there are still reports of those out there. And so, again, going back to it being, a fairy or sprite or elf in travel form, if their habitat's being taken away, it's likely that, seeing them in their travel form, they're not showing us that much anymore, because we're taking away where they're living. And so that could be an explanation in that decline. So one more kind of non-picture, non-photograph related orb type phenomenon is ball lightning. Ball lightning is something that has been reported for hundreds of years, but it's never, until just recently, been much understood. It's still not very well understood, to my understanding, but it has recently been recreated in a lab per se, and it really does kind of match the description of an orb, because it is just little round pieces of light that appear, and it actually can be dangerous. I believe it burnt down a church in the 1600s. It was a very famous case of the ball lightning, and there's different theories on what ball lightning is, and so it could be orbs. The most common explanation for ball lightning, one explanation comes from Vladimir Torchagan. Probably mispronounced that name really badly, but he theorizes that it's not actually true lightning in the sense, but it's actually light that is trapped inside a bubble or sphere of thin air. And since the light's trapped in the air, and it's a bubble of air, it shows itself as, an orb. And then others believe that it could be vaporized ground material that's been pushed upwards by a shock wave, and that kind of creates the orbs that are seen for just a few brief seconds. And then, like I said, the ball lightning that's been recreated in a lab. The way that was done was they had electricity. They used electricity to vaporize small particles of silicone, and when they did that, it created spheres of blue, orange, and white light that lasted for about 8 seconds. And so, yeah, it wasn't necessarily ball lightning, but it was. but it creates these spheres. So if these right circumstances occur in nature, that could be what people are seeing and accounting it to be, these paranormal spirits or orbs. But is it? I don't know. That's up to you to figure out in your own journey. So if you're looking at pictures and you see something that you think may be an orb, maybe a good idea to look into the photograph further and look for other clues. And if it's something that you found during a paranormal investigation, look at the evidence outside of the photograph that you also gathered on that investigation. That may help you determine if this is truly an orb of the paranormal or simply a malfunction or non-ghostly being in your photo. And yeah, so there it is. That is a very brief rundown on the orb phenomenon, and I hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any pictures of orbs that you'd like to share, I'd love to see it. You can email me at potentpuffin@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on Instagram or Twitter at potentpuffin, and just reference this episode so I know what you're talking about. And I'd love to see it. Or if you have a story about seeing some kind of light while you're out that wasn't explained, I'd love to hear those stories from you. So yeah, and if you enjoyed, keep on listening. Paranormal Puffin comes out every third Friday of the month, and I'll catch y'all on the next episode. I hope everyone, have a good time on whatever you're doing tonight.